Welcome to the Just Nuke It podcast. This week we're launching an apocalyptic probe into two just wildly different flash fiction stories
Oh, yeah.
that explore humanity's reaction to the end of the world.
Buckle up.
Get ready for some blockbuster action and
Yeah.
some serious thought-provoking scenarios.
They were a compelling pair of narratives.
Yeah.
Each one really wrestles with how humanity might react when facing, just complete annihilation.
Right.
But from these, vastly different angles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first flash fiction story, Totalitarian Twist, just kind of throws us headfirst into a world teetering on the brink of alien destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But the curveball here is that our potential savior is this Generalissimus Korval Zeno, the iron-fisted dictator of the United Korvalian Republic.
Right.
You sent this one over, and it immediately sparked kind of a crucial question for us.
Yeah.
Can a regime built on just absolute tyranny be the unlikely foundation for global unity against an extraterrestrial enemy?
It is a fascinating premise, especially when we think about the historical tension between individual liberties and collective security, especially when survival itself is on the line.
Right.
This story really forces us to examine how much we might be willing to concede in the face of an existential threat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we have our second flash fiction story, Super Sunset.
Okay.
This one offers a complete tonal shift.
All right.
We find a group of washed-up superheroes, well past their prime,
Right.
reluctantly coming back together for one last incredibly high-stakes heist.
Oh, wow.
Their target,
Okay.
the doomsday device of Dr. Annihilus, the very person who plunged their world into ruin.
Oh, right.
What really grabbed me about this one was the very human element.
Yeah.
These are heroes past their prime, dealing with their own baggage while facing ultimate stakes.
Interesting.
You mentioned wanting those aha moments in multiple perspectives. And these two stories couldn't offer a more striking contrast in their perspectives on leadership and what it means to be a hero when everything is at stake.
Right.
So let's dive into these.
Let's get into it.
Starting with the unsettling world of Totalitarian Twist.
All right. So let's focus on Generalissimus Korval Zeno to start.
Mm-hmm.
The flash fiction story really establishes him as this almost mythical figure ruling the United Korvalian Republic with an iron fist. We get this very strong image of him surveying his domain from the obsidian tower. The descriptions of the goose-stepping legions and the polluting war factories really paint a picture of a society built on absolute control and military might. And his initial reaction to the alien threat, just simply a new enemy to crush, tells us everything we need to know about his worldview.
Right. His entire identity is kind of wrapped up in this idea of control through force.
Wow.
The obsidian tower looming over everything
Oh, yeah.
is such a powerful symbol of his authority. But here's where it gets really interesting, and perhaps where the story starts to challenge our assumptions a little bit. When the alien invasion actually hits the societal order, Zeno has so meticulously constructed just starts to fall apart really, really quickly. His power base erodes, his armies fracture, and even his most loyal generals start to look at him with just disdain. It really highlights how a regime built solely on fear and force just crumbles when faced with a threat it can't simply crush.
That rapid disintegration of his authority is definitely a key point here.
Yeah.
It really underscores the difference between imposed order and
Oh.
genuine unity, right?
Right.
Zeno's control, as absolute as it seemed, didn't foster any real sense of shared purpose or loyalty beyond that fear. So when this unimaginable crisis hits, that kind of fragile structure collapses in on itself.
And then we get the truly unexpected turn, the arrival of the resistance fighters.
Oh, wow.
These are the very people that Zeno has been brutalizing, and their leader is a woman he personally ordered to be tortured. Can you even imagine the sheer desperation on both sides of that encounter?
Oh, gosh.
This woman, bearing the physical scars of Zeno's cruelty, has to somehow bring herself to acknowledge that he still controls the essential infrastructure that might be vital to their survival.
It really speaks volumes about just how extreme the situation is.
Yeah.
The fact that these resistance fighters who have suffered so directly under Zeno's regime are forced to seek his help really highlights the magnitude of the alien threat.
Right.
And the detail of the woman's scarred appearance and just defiant gaze is just so powerful. It tells us that while necessity might force this alliance, there's just no forgiveness. There's no forgetting the past.
Of course.
It's a purely pragmatic, almost transactional arrangement born of absolute desperation.
Exactly. And Zeno's internal struggle, as the story kind of presents it, is fascinatingly twisted.
Right.
His initial revulsion at the idea of collaborating with his enemies is almost comical given his own history.
Oh, yeah.
But then his almost pathological need for control reasserts itself. He sees this crisis not just as a threat, but as an opportunity to potentially seize even greater power.
Oh, wow.
And there's this one line, from absolute control to global savior. It was an irony worthy of the gods. It really gives us a glimpse into his just utterly warped psyche. It's not about saving humanity for its own sake. It's about Zeno saving humanity under his absolute command.
It's a chillingly logical, in his mind, progression.
Yeah.
He doesn't suddenly develop a sense of altruism. His motivation remains rooted in that deep-seated desire for domination.
Yeah.
The alien invasion is simply a new, larger stage upon which he can play out his ambitions.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if someone so deeply ingrained in a totalitarian mindset is even capable of acting in the best interests of humanity, even if the outcome appears to be beneficial.
Which leads to this incredibly unsettling transformation of his regime. His secret police, previously instruments of terror and oppression, become enforcers of this forced global unity. Old enemies are compelled into these incredibly tense and uneasy alliances. The story emphasizes that he's not building a harmonious global society. He's essentially forging humanity into a single brutal fist, with himself, of course, at the helm.
Precisely. The methods remain the same: coercion, surveillance, the suppression of dissent, but the target has shifted. Instead of focusing solely on internal threats, he's now directing that same ruthlessness outward.
Right.
This raises a really important question about the nature of unity.
Yes.
Can true unity ever be achieved through force and fear? Or is it inherently something that requires a degree of shared values and mutual respect?
And it all kind of culminates in this final terrifying confrontation. The arrival of the alien ships blotting out the sun.
Oh my God.
A truly visceral and apocalyptic image. In that moment, Zeno's role seems to shift, at least superficially. He's no longer just the generalissimus of a fractured republic. He becomes the commander of a desperate planet facing extinction. And his final order, not surrender, not retreat, but defiance, is a powerful, albeit deeply unsettling, moment of leadership. Even knowing what he is, you can't deny the impact of that decisive stand.
It is a powerful moment, and it leaves you with a real sense of ambiguity, you know?
Yeah.
Despite his horrific past, in that final instance, he embodies a certain kind of unwavering resolve. Whether it stems from a genuine desire to protect humanity or simply a refusal to relinquish control even in the face of oblivion, is left open to interpretation. But the outcome, unified, if brutally coerced, resistance, is undeniable.
Okay, pivoting completely now, let's plunge into the world of Super Sunset.
Okay.
This flash fiction story offers a stark contrast, throwing us into an apocalypse where our potential saviors are anything but powerful dictators. We're introduced to Sparks the Magnificent in a rather deflated state.
Yeah, the immediate juxtaposition is striking.
Right. Instead of a figure of immense power, we encounter a former superhero, struggling with something as mundane as lighting a cigarette.
Right.
That pathetic little lighter flame serves as a potent symbol of his diminished abilities and the faded glory of his past.
Yeah.
Then, the arrival of Lady Nightshade, his former adversary, injects an immediate dose of intrigue and hints at a shared history, perhaps even a reluctant respect.
Yeah, their initial interaction is just loaded with subtext.
Yeah.
You can just feel the old rivalries simmering beneath the surface. But there's also a sense of shared experience of having both seen better days. And Nightshade's continued air of elegance, even amidst the apocalypse, really underscores Spark's decline. And then she hits him with the grim reality. Dr. Annihilus isn't just benefiting from the apocalypse, he's actively controlling it.
Right.
That's a terrifying escalation of the stakes.
It certainly raises the stakes beyond mere survival.
Now they're facing someone who has weaponized the very end of the world. And Nightshade's mention of a rapidly closing window of opportunity adds a crucial element of urgency to their desperate mission.
Yeah, and so begins this wonderfully ragtag reunion.
Right.
Nightshade, swallowing her pride, has to seek out Sparks. And then they start thinking about the other heroes who have retreated into the shadows. We get these wonderfully brief but evocative descriptions. Gearhead, the grease-stained recluse,
Okay.
Captain Courage, the broken man, and the foreboding mention of the void. It paints a picture of heroes who have been profoundly affected by past failures and the weight of a world they couldn't ultimately save.
Right. These aren't the idealized, invincible heroes of their prime. They're flawed.
Right.
They're carrying the scars of past battles, both physical and emotional.
Of course.
This vulnerability, ironically, makes them far more relatable.
Yeah.
And perhaps even more compelling than a flawless hero would be. Their willingness to set aside their own pain and disillusionment to try one more time speaks to a fundamental, almost instinctual sense of responsibility.
Their journey to Annihilus' fortress is almost darkly comedic in its sheer desperation. A stolen, barely functioning semi-truck.
Oh, wow.
It's a far cry from the sleek vehicles you might expect superheroes to use. And the fortress itself, described as a twisted monstrosity of salvaged tech and raw energy, is such a fantastic and unsettling image. It perfectly embodies the chaotic and dangerous nature of this post-apocalyptic world.
It's a visual representation of the apocalypse itself,
Yeah.
cobbled together from the remnants of the old world, powered by something volatile and dangerous. It underscores the makeshift nature of their endeavor and the sheer power they are going up against. It's not a pristine villain's lair.
Right.
It's a reflection of the broken world they inhabit.
Yeah, and the heist itself is wonderfully chaotic. Captain Courage immediately getting pinned down, Lady Nightshade nearly being incinerated, Sparks having to get into a brutal physical fight.
Oh, my.
These aren't the smooth, perfectly coordinated actions of a superhero team in its heyday. They're struggling, they're making mistakes, they're just barely hanging on.
Right.
And Gearhead, in the midst of all this mayhem, manages to pull off the impossible with that fantastic, wicked grin, a small but incredibly satisfying moment of triumph amidst the chaos.
It's the raw human grit and determination that shines through in these moments.
Yes.
Their vulnerabilities are on full display.
Absolutely.
But so is their refusal to give up, even when everything is going wrong.
Yeah.
Gearhead's grin is a perfect little spark of hope in a seemingly hopeless situation.
Yeah.
A reminder of their individual skills and their ability to still surprise.
And then comes the final confrontation with Dr. Annihilus, who has become this terrifying avatar of crackling power.
Right.
It really seems like all hope is lost, but then Captain Courage, despite being battered and probably outmatched, makes this incredibly defiant stand. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated heroism.
Yeah.
A refusal to yield even in the face of certain defeat.
It's a powerful testament to the enduring nature of heroism, even when stripped of superpowers and facing overwhelming odds. Captain Courage's act is one of pure defiance.
Yeah.
A symbolic refusal to let evil triumph, even if it costs him everything.
And then the truly unexpected happens, the sudden materialization of the void.
Oh, my God.
The description of the shadows as hungry living things and the very fabric of reality warping around him is just wild and introduces this whole other level of unpredictable power into the conflict. We don't know his motivations. He's this enigmatic force who suddenly appears.
The Void's intervention injects a significant element of the unknown and the potentially supernatural into the climax.
Right.
We're left questioning his motives, the extent of his abilities, and whether his appearance is a truly heroic act or something far more complex and perhaps even self-serving.
Yeah.
It adds a layer of ambiguity to what might otherwise be a straightforward battle between good and evil.
And in the aftermath, the fortress is in ruins. Annihilus and the Void have vanished.
Wow.
And we're left with these weary, battered heroes. Captain Courage's small, gentle gesture sparks simple longing for a beer. It brings the whole story back down to a very human level after all the cosmic stakes. It's a reminder that even after saving the world, these are still just ordinary people dealing with the physical and emotional toll of what they've been through.
It brings the narrative full circle, grounding the extraordinary events in very relatable human reactions.
Absolutely.
Sparks' desire for a simple beer is the perfect touch of normalcy after the incredible chaos they've just experienced. It underscores their humanity and the quiet exhaustion that follows such a monumental effort.
So these two apocalyptic probe stories, Totalitarian Twist and Super Sunset, offer such dramatically different perspectives on leadership and heroism in the face of utter annihilation. Totalitarian Twist presents this deeply unsettling idea of a brutal dictator becoming humanity's potential savior, really forcing us to confront questions about the price of survival and the kind of unity that can be forged under extreme oppression. What does it tell us about humanity if our only hope lies on the hands of someone who has inflicted so much suffering?
It compels us to grapple with some really uncomfortable ethical questions.
Yeah.
Is the preservation of the species the ultimate imperative, even if it means embracing tyranny? And can any good truly come from a foundation of such profound injustice? It makes you wonder about the long-term consequences of such a salvation.
Super Sunset, on the other hand, gives us this more familiar, yet still incredibly compelling, narrative of flawed, past their prime heroes finding one last spark of their former glory. It reminds us that even when hope seems lost and individuals are carrying the weight of past failures, courage and ingenuity can still offer a fighting chance. And the lingering mystery surrounding the void's appearance and disappearance, was it a genuine act of heroism or something far more enigmatic?
The ambiguity surrounding the void definitely adds a layer of intrigue and challenges the traditional superhero narrative.
Yes.
It suggests that even in acts of apparent heroism, there can be hidden motives or forces at play that we don't fully understand. It leaves you pondering the true nature of sacrifice and the unpredictable elements that can influence even the most extreme situations.
Both flash fiction stories, in their own unique ways, really dig into the resilience of the human spirit when pushed to the absolute brink. They present these extreme scenarios that force us to contemplate what truly matters when facing extinction. We hope this apocalyptic probe has given you some fascinating food for thought.
They certainly provide contrasting yet equally thought-provoking lenses through which to examine humanity's potential responses to the ultimate crisis.
Thank you for joining us on the Just Nuke IT podcast. We encourage you to revisit these flash fiction stories and consider what aspects resonate most with you. What kind of leader would you want in an apocalyptic scenario? Do you believe in second chances, even for the most flawed individuals?
Yeah.
Rate and follow the show for more captivating stories from the Just Nuke It podcast.